In video games, characters are essential in allowing the player to interact with the game. They allow the player to feel more connected by having the ability to choose their online persona and even customize them to better fit their preferences via cosmetics, height, etc. It's a form of self-expression and helps people to make a stronger connection with the game. They're also used to tell stories and is a good way of expressing the game's theme and nature to the audience. A good example are TF2 characters. They're bright and colorful, perfectly expressing the very comical and exaggerated nature of TF2. They also strongly contrast each other's personalities by having very distinct designs that separates them very clearly. I'm sure you've heard many times how strongly Valve feels about making their silhouettes distinct to allow the player to quickly establish the character they're looking at. This is a good example of how important character design is. For example, Rainbow Six won't have bright characters like TF2. They instead have very dark, grim-looking characters that come off as very tough and realistic. They wouldn't have characters like Mercy or Tracer. They just don't fit with the theme of the game. Today we're going to be taking a look at TF2's characters and answer the question, why doesn't TF2 have any female characters? TF2 has been released for more than 10 years now, and that's quite a lot of time to not add characters. It kind of makes you wonder what Valve has been doing in their spare time. Oh my god. Of course, there are third-party mods that contain female versions of already existing TF2 characters, but those are not officially endorsed by Valve themselves and are made by the community. Of course, that didn't stop anyone from trying. Okay, apparently this website has really good TF2 models, so I'm just gonna take a quick look.
What the fuck are you looking at? FBI, my son is looking at porn, arrest him.
However, a Kotaku article shows evidence that Valve actually did consider putting women into the game. Quite recently, an ex-Valve employee named Drew Wolf released early designs of female characters in Team Fortress 2. He was the man behind the story, character development, and visual designs of the characters you see today. The pitch to include female characters was to dive deep into possibilities and facilitate creative discussion. As you can see here, many of the designs show a much more feminine version of the existing classes that Team Fortress 2 already has. Drew Wolf hasn't been seen commenting further on the idea of female characters in Team Fortress 2. I've even tried contacting him at one point asking him for further details. It's been several months and I've yet to receive a reply. All of this definitely does show Valve's initial intention to add females to diversify the cast a bit more. But of course the question still stands, why didn't they go further with this idea? By far the most simple and obvious hurdle here is simply context. When making a game set in a certain period of time, you need to understand the context, the social rules, and the actual laws put in place at that time. In that point in time, women were only allowed to participate in the war as nurses, mostly joining non-combat ships as technicians, nurses, and officers. The only time that women were actually allowed to fight was at the earliest 1991 to 1992, where during the Persian Gulf War, more than 41,000 women were deployed to the combat zone. To further back up this theory, TF2 initially began as an accurate war simulator, Team Fortress 2, Brotherhood of Arms, where one of their main aims would have been to accurately portray the time the game was based on to the players, much like Battlefield 1's aim to accurately portray events happening at that time and the weapons that were available back then. So when making TF2, Valve decided to be contextually sensible and stick to the actual events happening in the 1960s to 1970s, with exceptions of teleporters and sentry guns and wow, oh, fuck me, sure, okay, yeah, just go ahead. A game like TF2 is constantly updated with new maps, weapons, and game modes to remain new and exciting. But that doesn't mean that Valve should invest their time into constantly adding things that people don't want. They should instead listen to their customers and then meet their demands. There's no point in making more maps when the customers are already satisfied with the amount of maps available. Characters take time to make. They need designs, animations, voice actors, gameplay adjustments, and models. Valve may have seen a lack of demand for female characters and instead decided to work on other parts of the game. Robin Walker himself actually talked about this in a 2010 interview with Critscast. Having multiple character models for... I think I'll just summarize it instead. Essentially, Robin Walker is afraid of how more models would reduce performance as it requires more memory to run the game smoothly. Furthermore, it would take a lot of time to produce new items for both models and new voice lines for each version. Then you have the competitive aspect. If female models had a different design, they would then have different hitboxes. So of course people would choose the model with the better hitbox, making the other one less viable and selected way less. If they were the same, the designs of the models would almost be identical and then defeats the purpose of having new models in the first place. These are very valid and important things to think about when adding new characters. He ended the interview by saying, in short, multiple models for player classes is something we'd love to do, but it's not likely to happen in the near term. But that was in 2010, so probably not happening, guys. Sometimes the story and theme of a game dictates the implementations that a game will have. For example, a survival game may not implement a battle royale feature because shit. Okay, a game like Sonic, catered to kids, wouldn't include guns because it just doesn't fit the theme and it's not suitable for the target audience. Hey kids, let's go shoot at people! If they were to branch out, they would either hire external employees or try it themselves and fuck it all up, which is a totally bad idea. And Sonic, why? Team Fortress 2 story has already been really heavily developed. The developers may have seen the inclusion of another character awkward for the story and lore, or maybe females just didn't match up with the theme of unrivaled masculinity. Robin Walker, one of the co-developers of TF2, also had this to say when asked why they didn't add female characters. We don't have a good reason for this. When we started, we wanted to ship male and female versions of each class, since that's obviously the best solution. As production went on, it became clear that we couldn't afford the memory that would be needed to do that and still maintain the quality we wanted. Looking back, we should have shipped some of the classes as female and some as male. I think the only reason that didn't happen was due to the team hoping that we would still figure out how to do it the right way. I think that helps us to see the many issues that Valve had when implementing female characters. The first issue is limitations, specifically the inability to afford the memory needed to add more characters. We then have concerns with design. Like I said before, the context, the story, and of course, balancing. TF2 revolves around the 9 characters. Having a 10th one added would need a lot of patching and balancing. Overwatch is a great example of how a game with a lot of characters need a lot of attention to balance. Maybe they found the 10th character would shift the already optimum balance within the 9 characters, or the character was just not fun to play. And probably the last reason why females weren't implemented was the fact that the project was constantly pushed aside. Maybe the idea was going to actually be put into the game, but the idea was constantly delayed, as stated by Robin Walker, due to the fear of not getting it just right. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please do press the like button, and if you want to see more, please do subscribe. Also, I do have a Discord, so if you have any suggestions for the next video or if you want to chat with me, feel free to join my Discord. I also have a Twitch channel, so if you're a fan of watching me play Team Fortress 2 or want to chat with me live, Twitch is a great place to do that, and I'm more than happy to talk with all of you. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.